What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to All Sports Talk with Peter Burtnett, bringing you a recap of last night's action. We're going to be going over a little bit of some of the key games in the NHL, but first I'm going to start with the big games kind of across women's college basketball last night. The big one was number 2 Ohio State at number 6 Indiana. We'll talk about that one in a minute, but I want to run down some of these other ranked matchups or just overall big matchups from last night as well. So starting out in women's college basketball, the big storyline game, perhaps even more than the Ohio State-Indiana game, just because of the background behind this one, is the We Back Pat game between number 5 UConn and Tennessee, who's currently unranked but is putting together still a good season. They were 16-6 going into the game. The Huskies had really a big, huge first quarter, 33 points to jump ahead by 16 after the first quarter. Not quite as good of a second quarter. They only scored 7 points. Tennessee made a charge, but ultimately UConn was able to hold out for a pretty comfortable win. Aaliyah Edwards with 25 points and 7 rebounds for the 5th-ranked Huskies. And then a really good game, though, for Jordan Horston for the Volunteers with 27 points and 7 rebounds. So obviously a lot surrounds this game because of the historical rivalry. I mean, these two teams were at the forefront of growing the women's college basketball just coverage for the sport and the interest in the sport. Obviously, the late, great Pat Summitt, longtime coach at Tennessee, led them to amazing heights, led the Volunteers program. And again, these two teams were kind of, with Gino Auriemma at UConn, were at the top of women's college basketball. And so a big game, College Game Day was there, a huge crowd, I think 15,000 or something like that in Knoxville. And while the home team didn't get the win, it was another really good moment for the sport of women's college basketball. But looking at some of the other games, a big ranked matchup in the Big Ten, not, again, as big as the other game, but number 13 Michigan and number 10 Maryland. The Terrapins also had a solid start, jumped ahead by 10 at halftime. Big game for Diamond Miller, 23 points, got 5 steals as well, was able to create discomfort for the Wolverines offense, and so Maryland improves to 17-4. And are starting to maybe join that upper echelon that I talked about in another video of Indiana, Ohio State, and Iowa. Maryland might be a team with Diamond Miller that would be considered in that top 4 of the Big Ten. Now, shifting gears over to the ACC, a big win for number 16 Duke. They're 18-2, 8-1 in the ACC, so they might be gearing up for maybe a move up in the polls after a 66-55 win over Virginia Tech. Late charge in the fourth quarter. They won that quarter by 10. Big game for Cheyenne Day-Wilson, 18 points to lead the Blue Devils. And Duke gets a really good win to boost their resume, getting that ranked win. And then rounding out the other ranked matchups, Notre Dame, number 7, also making jumps up in the polls and everything, able to get a 70-47 dismantling of number 24 Florida State. Huge game for Sonia Citron with 19 points and 8 rebounds, and a good double-double for Michaela Timpson for the 24th ranked Seminoles, 13 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Now, shifting gears, though, to the big game, and I talked about this in a previous episode this week. Number 2 Ohio State, going into this week, they were undefeated. They looked like the best defense in college basketball, maybe same territory as South Carolina. That'd be the only defense I would say compared. But they struggled against Iowa. They couldn't get the offense going. And again, the Buckeyes struggled here against number 6 Indiana at Assembly Hall. From a couple of pictures that I saw on Twitter, it looked like it was a huge crowd, which again is awesome for the sport to be able to see that. But a big game by Mackenzie Holmes for the Hoosiers, 26 points, and really it was actually a 4-point Buckeye lead at halftime, but a huge third quarter for Indiana, who's now 19-1, 9-1 in the Big Ten, put up 27 points and held the Buckeyes offense to just 6 points. And so as I talked about in the previous video, the Buckeyes have some things they're going to need to work on and adjust in terms of their defense and their offense, which have both been lacking in the last couple of games. Still missing J.C. Sheldon, but whether she's back soon or out for a more an extended period of time, they're going to have to figure that out. And while they looked really good against maybe not that upper tier of teams, they've certainly taken a big step back now that they've faced those big teams. So certainly maybe a little bit of concern for Ohio State women's basketball, but for Indiana, it's a huge win for the Hoosiers, who have, I think, maybe put a stamp on being the top team in the Big Ten. I would say they would with that win. They've also defeated Tennessee earlier this season. Their one loss is at Michigan State by 5. But they've got three straight ranked wins. Actually, 4 out of their last 5 are ranked wins over Maryland, Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio State. And the big one to watch for Indiana on the schedule, they face Iowa twice still, on February 9th at home and on February 26th in Iowa City. And then they do go back to Ohio State on February 13th, so that's a big one to watch to see, if everybody's healthy for the Buckeyes and if they're back playing to their full potential. And then one more, 3 days after that game against the Buckeyes, the Hoosiers face Michigan again. And so certainly a tough stretch down the road here, and it looks like a 4-team race at the top of the Big Ten that should be very, very interesting to watch unfold. Now shifting into the other sport that, in my opinion, dominated the headlines last night, at least in terms of game action, and that's the National Hockey League. A big win for the Tampa Bay Lightning over the Boston Bruins, 3-2. A late winner, I think 13 minutes left in the game, by Victor Hedman for the Lightning, and a really, really good game for Nikita Kucherov for the Lightning, with assisting all 3 goals. And then Vasilevsky, the Tampa Bay goalkeeper, with 37 saves and a 94.9 save percentage. So a big win for the Lightning, as they're not going to catch the Bruins at the top of the Atlantic Division, but they kind of get a little bit more security away from that potential, the wild card spots where things can get interesting. They're now on 63 points and pretty firmly established in 3rd place in the Atlantic. Another big game, a wild card matchup in the Eastern Conference between the 2 current wild card teams, the Washington Capitals outlasting the Penguins in a shootout to get a big victory over Pittsburgh, pushes them to the number 1 wild card spot, 58 points. The Penguins are on 57, but a team that's catching up to them a little bit and has been kind of hanging around them the whole season is the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres got a big 3-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets. A couple of assists for Jeff Skinner, and then both a goal and an assist for Tage Thompson again over the Winnipeg Jets, who are 31-18-1 and currently sitting at second in the Western Conference Central Division. So a big win for the Sabres, helps them keep pace with the Penguins and Capitals, currently 2 points behind the Penguins for the second wild card spot. And just running down a couple of other results from last night as well, the Nashville Predators with a big 6-4 win over the New Jersey Devils. The Devils currently second in the Metropolitan Division, and the Predators are 1 point back of the Colorado Avalanche for the second wild card spot in the Western Conference, which is really, really competitive and pretty open right now. You've got Colorado in that second wildcard spot, 55 points. Calgary Flames have been in that spot, and they've dropped off a little bit recently. They're also on 55 points, but behind the Avalanche on a tiebreaker, and then the Predators are right there on 54. So it will definitely be interesting to see how that race unfolds between those 3 teams. And so that's kind of a quick rundown of last night's action in both women's college basketball and in the National Hockey League. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. Leave a comment about your thoughts on the action in women's college basketball or in the NHL, or, leave a comment on some sports. I'm trying to, be pretty all-inclusive here with the sports that I cover. I know I certainly haven't covered everything. If there's coverage that you want to see, please leave a comment below letting me know what you want to see. I'd certainly appreciate the connection with you guys, the viewers, and your input on what to include. But that's it for this episode of All Sports Talk. I'm Peter Burtnett, signing out. Peace.